Peacewise is promoting peace and reconciliation in relationships through biblical principles and the power of Christ. At Peacewise, we want to see every Australian church, school, Christian community embrace biblical peacemaking when responding to conflict and work towards building God-glorifying, joyful, gospel-witnessing cultures of peace. The first and most basic training that we give is training in biblical peacemaking. And that's a one-day training where you learn how to deal with conflict in your own life. Beyond that, there's 2 days of conflict coaching training where we're seeking to equip you to help someone else who's struggling with a conflict. Ping did our training and then she applied these principles in her own family with absolutely miraculous results.
But one thing I wasn't expecting was the response of my non-believer father. Knowing he always have a long-term skepticism to Christianity. This time, when I went back to Hong Kong to visit him, I decided to show God's love in action rather than my own word. But never did I know that God's miraculous intervention in this conflict. He was greatly impacted by God's reconciliating power of gospel put into practice by using the peacemaking principle, bringing life and hope. At the end of the conflict, I just came to my father and I asked him, "Do you want to have the blessing of God I have had during this tough time?" He just simply nodded his head and I simply shared the gospel with him. By God's grace, he accepted Christ in his life and he even said amen with us. Next day, he even led us to chuck away all his ancestor idol at home. God transformed him into a cheerful and joyful man. He took away all his bitterness and unforgiving heart in the past.
One of the key focuses of Peacewise's ministry is to build these principles into the fabric of the community. Now we're going to hear from Boyd Allen, head of Hunter Christian School, who's done just that.
The reason I wanted to do the conflict coaching was there was different dimensions to my role. That there's always that parent, that student, that staff member that invariably ends up in my office. And I certainly wanted to have the skills, the capacity to deal with those better, deal with those in a more biblical way. I saw staff generally reconciling. I saw staff reconciling with parents. I saw staff reconciling with ex-partners that they'd had, or their wives or husbands. It was just incredibly exciting for me to see that happen and just see again that culture of peace being nurtured in our school. It really made me see a different dimension to what I had understood in my role as both a Christian and as a leader.
One of the consistent feedbacks that we get when people do our training is to say, we wish we had known these things 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 years ago so that we could have used them then. So we see a strategic value in teaching these principles in every Australian church, school and Christian community to build God-glorifying, joyful, gospel-witnessing cultures of peace.